makes existing car problems worse. How do we keep our cars from breaking down? I met with investigator Jim Parks outside the Consumer Protection Office to get the answers. Hey Jim, thanks for joining us on Consumer Compass. You know, we're very fortunate to have you as an automotive expert in our office, and I know you get all the technical questions. So I was hoping you can give us the jump start on how to prepare our cars for winter.
Sure. Well, the first place to start, because it's the most problematic, is the battery. Most batteries will do fine through the summer, but when they're really challenged in the winter is when you'll have difficulty. What you want to look for is around the battery terminals. Make sure that you don't have corrosion on either side. If you do, you can clean that with a mixture of baking soda and water. Just make sure that you rinse it very, very thoroughly because it is acid. And you want to make sure that you rinse it off of all of the body panels too. You might also invest in some gloves. Even the Playtex rubber gloves that you get for cleaning the house are fine, but the acid on your skin is not a good combination either. The other thing you want to make sure of is that the battery is still within its service life, generally 4 to 5 years. If you have a 6 or 7 year old battery, you're probably expecting trouble this season. Most retail facilities that sell batteries will be happy to test yours for you free, so take advantage of that. And it's not just dealerships, it's anybody that sells batteries.
That's good to know. There's nothing worse than breaking down the highway. Once you're under the hood, what's the next thing you're going to look for after the battery?
Well, the next thing that you want to make sure you take very careful note of is your engine oil. You want to make sure that it's clean, it's been changed per the interval. You want to make sure that you look at your owner's manual. Most oil is either going to be an orange or red dipstick, and you want to just give it a good wipe. Make sure the engine's been sitting still for more than 5 minutes, and as you can see, this level is probably about a quart low. It's also a little dirty, so she might want to think about getting an oil change here very quickly.
I guess the oil is kind of like the lifeblood of the engine, isn't it?
Absolutely. And while you're thinking of what to put in your crankcase, there are a lot of very, very good synthetic oils out there, some of which have molecules that will attach to the internal engine components and actually ease the friction and help with enhanced engine life. Many cars are run 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 miles these days, and synthetic oil is one of the things that has helped that to happen. Again, you want to check your owner's manual for the proper oil change interval for your car, and not just go with the every 3,000 miles that a lot of people still believe. That was before the increases in engine technology and oil technology, and to change every 3,000 miles is to just put a lot of used oil and used oil filters into our landfills, which we really don't need.
Okay, now I guess it gets pretty hot in this engine, huh?
Yes, it does, even in the wintertime. The thermostat is a very good idea to make sure that you take a look at. Very difficult for you and I to test, but a professional can do that by putting different equipment on here that'll tell them how hot the engine is running. What you can do when your engine's cold is simply feel your hoses and just make sure that they're still soft and pliable. You'll see a couple going back to the heater and of course the main ones here at the radiator. If they're very hard, very stiff, that's going to be an indication that they're ready to go, and they will go at the absolute worst opportune times, such as on 270 or the middle of the Beltway in rush hour traffic. The next thing you want to take a look at is your coolant. And we have a very stubborn little cap on this coolant jar. But again, with the engine cold, you would simply open it, make sure that you can see some level of coolant in there. Most cars have an indicator on the side of the tank. Do not do this when the engine's warm because you will have it blow up in your face, and hot coolant is not comfortable. Finally, while we're under the hood, the next thing you want to take a look at is your windshield washer solvent. In this case, the washer solvent has a little umbrella looking symbol on it. Most cars built in the last 10 years have some kind of an indicator like that. They haven't quite gotten to a universal language, but this one with the little umbrella is a pretty good hint. You want to make sure that you can see washer solvent in there. In this dark bottle it's very difficult. But the thing you also want to make sure that you do is make sure that you put in a winter mix. Most windshield washer fluid that you buy is pre-mixed for the winter. You just don't dilute it when you put it in. Summertime you can dilute it a little bit, winter you don't want to.
Now I know, Jim, we want to keep the rain and snow off the windshield.
Right, and critical to doing that are the windshield wiper blades. You want to just take a look and make sure that they're soft and pliable. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're driving and there's a lot of road salt out there, when you get home, take a clean cloth with some Windex and wipe that salt off of the wiper blades so that it doesn't precipitate a little more deterioration than you really need. Again, you want to make sure that the blades are all in one piece. And if we take a look, this particular car has wipers on the headlights. And this is what a bad wiper blade looks like, where it's separating. And these won't do her any good whatsoever if she starts them up. And in fact, that could even damage her headlights. So we don't want to use those. We want to get those replaced. Okay. Next thing we take a look at is the tires. On this particular tire, we have a lot of wear on the outside edges. The car probably needs a front end alignment, but you'll also see this cracking starting right here. It's going to be very quickly that we're going to have the steel cords of the tire showing through, and that will lead to a tire failure and a shredded tire on the side of the road, probably at rush hour. Next, you want to get a tire gauge. They're not expensive. You can get them at most auto stores. And once a month, you want to walk around the car and check your tire pressure. To find out how much the tire should have, the inside driver's door has a little placard on just about every car, and it tells you how much pressure should be in the tires. So you want to make sure that you keep them completely inflated. Years ago, there was an old wives' tale that when the weather gets bad, lower the tire pressure. Not anymore. Tires today are built to run at their stated tire pressure. Don't lower them just because the weather gets bad. And finally, it's a good idea to think about what you have in the gas tank. In the winter, particularly if it's going to be a very, very cold snap, you want to try to keep at least a half a tank of fuel in there. That minimizes the condensation that builds up in the fuel tank and minimizes your chances of having your fuel freeze. If we get into weather that's going to be consistently below about 15 degrees, you might want to consider fuel line de-icer. Just make sure that you get it for gasoline or diesel, depending on what kind of fuel your vehicle uses.
Okay, well that's great advice for keeping us on the road. Do you have any recommendations for what we should keep inside the car in case of an emergency?
It's a great idea, particularly in the winter, to carry, for example, a blanket, a bottle or two of water, and maybe some granola bars, something that won't go bad, that if you get stuck in traffic for several hours, you've got a little bit of something to eat so that you don't starve to death waiting for the road to free up and go on.
Okay, that's great advice. I know consumers will be calling you in case they have a problem.
All righty. Take care.
Thanks.